Gibson.
Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'd like to thank my honourable friend for Skye, Lochaber and Ross for bringing this debate forward. Once again, I find myself speaking in a debate on the WASPI women. For the fourth time, I think it is, and frustratingly, after and despite 3 previous debates, after a UK-wide petition which in my own constituency attracted 2,534 signatures and would have attracted more had there been more time, after the possibility of legal action from the WASPI women being seriously on the table due to what has been, in effect, mis-selling of this group of women's pensions, after a report from the Work and Pension Select Committee concluding that, quote, more could and should have been done to communicate these changes. After all this, Mr Chair, we still seem to be no further forward, and everyone is feeling the frustration. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. It's worse than she describes. 5.5 years ago, I stood in this hall with my colleague for Leeds, our then frontbench spokesperson, and challenged the government on this very issue. We did that again the year after, again the year after. So, as much as she describes recent action, it's even worse than that. We've been telling the government this is wrong since 2011.
Yeah.
I thank the Honourable Lady for that intervention, and I go back to my original point. Still, after all this time, after all this activity, after all the warnings, after all the stories of hardship, still we are no further forward. When will this government waken up to the fact that pensions are not a benefit? The honourable gentleman who spoke before me described it as a promise. It is not a promise. It is a contract, a social contract, which has been cruelly and thoughtlessly broken. And it's time for the government to step up and take responsibility for the way this entire matter over a number of years has been mishandled, and stop dragging this misery out for the women caught up in this injustice. I'm very conscious of other people wanting to get in. I do apologise to the Honourable Lady. Around 2.6 million women have been affected by these changes, and in Scotland the figure is 243,900 women. On behalf of the SNP, Landman Economics analysed the costs and distributional impacts of potential changes to pension arrangements for women born in the 1950s who are losing out, in the context of the surplus of the National Insurance Fund, which is projected to stand at around £30 billion at the end of 27-18, according to the government's own figures. With this surplus now being forecast to be larger than before, the £7.9 billion cost it would to give these women relief, to give these women a delay in their rise in their pension age, is very much affordable. The Landman report costed the return to the 1995 Pensions Act would restore the immediate timetable for that Act and raising the pension age for women from 63 in March 2016 to 65 by April 2020, with no further increase to 66 until the mid-2020s. This is the second most expensive option and costing around £7.9 billion over 5 years. This is not a trivial cost, but as we've heard today, it is not prohibitively expensive either in the context of other spending plans by the government. It has the merit of completely eliminating the problem of accelerated increase in pension ages for women born in the 1950s by returning to a timetable set out 2 decades ago, giving women much more time, necessary time, to adapt to these changes. It would then be possible to increase women's pension age to 66 at some later point in the 2020s. This measure has the benefit of being both progressive and reduces relative and absolute pensioner poverty. The UK Government's position on this, even after all the mistakes in the process have been laid bare for all to see, has been characterised by intransigence and wilful stubbornness. It is time to do what is right, it is time to do what is fair, it is time to do what is just. And it's time for the government to stop telling us that it has no choice. It is time to make the right choices, and it is time for justice for the WASPI women.